Hi there, everybody. It's Tim from the Wellbeing Collective, and I'm joined by Hilary, who does some work for the Wellbeing Collective, but also works in her own organisation, leading on some aspects of organisational development, or OD as we call it. And you'll see, and I'll point just somewhere down there, a link to a blog that Hilary's written about a new habit that she's developed, and asking really good questions about the importance of developing new habits and what new habits you may be developing as part of your day-to-day routine. And of course, your blog, Hilary, is really pertinent in terms of the context of the pandemic and lockdown, and all of the things that we're discovering about ourselves. So I'd encourage people to have a little read. I'll point down there again at the link. But actually, we're here today to talk about organisational development and OD within the current climate. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time with Hilary to just ask a couple of questions and just get your views and perspectives. So I was going to ask you, you're involved in OD in your everyday role, and I know you also have a role within the Wellbeing Collective as well from time to time, doing some OD work. What do you think is the role for OD in the current climate? Do you think there is a role for OD in terms of where we're at the moment?
Yeah, I absolutely do, Tim. It's been a kind of strange old time in terms of quite a lot of the OD work that we'd had planned that was in train obviously all had to be put on hold initially during lockdown. But what we found really increasingly, obviously, the pressure and the impact on teams has been huge in many ways. And firstly, the move to remote working and being able to do things via Zoom has actually opened up opportunities to really do things much more spontaneously with people. We've been doing much more of is working with leaders to think about how we can support their teams. And often that is around giving people a bit of space for reflection, to think together about how they can kind of manage their own mental well-being, share ideas. So the type of OD work we've been doing has changed, I think, but and there has been less of it because people have been, it has been more difficult to organise stuff in the same way. But I think it's been absolutely vital to keep that going for people.
Yeah, so there's something about what staff are needing at the moment, and the type of work is different. So what have been the shifts? Because generally speaking, with OD, it can be often more formal programs where people are coming and doing learning specific things and developing new tools and new skills to be more effective in their teams. So what sort of things are people wanting and needing now?
I think the focus has been more on structured, using OD to create spaces for people to reflect together. And actually we've been, it's been really surprising to me the extent to which it has worked remotely as well, and if not better in many instances, in getting people together. So there's been much more of an emphasis on a team, getting teams together and doing work in that way. But I've been constantly surprised at how some of the types of tools and interventions we might have thought would only work in a face-to-face setting and in a big room, we've adapted them to use in breakout rooms on Zoom, and they have worked. So nearly as well, I would say. And some aspects have been that we've had to do them differently, but it's not been less useful. It's just been different.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's been different, and I've had lots of feedback that actually people have really enjoyed it and have been quite surprised by just how well it's worked. Are there any tools that you have particularly enjoyed using online?
Oh, some of the just things like randomizing people into groups. Those little kind of spinning wheels where you can that are quite fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Show get choose people to kind of speak or have been. Again, we wouldn't have bothered to do that. That wouldn't have worked face to face. I think some of the we used did something recently that was around doing a timeline that we had in the past have done with huge bits of flip chart paper or
On the floor or on the wall or something
on the
like
floor
that.
on the
Yeah,
walls.
yeah.
And actually we did that with a kind of online software package where people stuck, kind of as if they were sticking post-it notes on, but to create a timeline and moved. And that again, wasn't sure how that would work, but it worked really well actually.
I haven't heard of that. You'll have to tell me a
I'll
bit more
tell you.
about that. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think tech is also catching up in terms of providing a much more kind of online software to do the things that perhaps we used to do in person. Do you think people have enjoyed using the tools and enjoyed having the space away from whatever they're facing day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's made it more accessible for lots of people because
Mm,
haven't been what we would so one of the things that we did in a recent away day was say part of the value of that is people driving to the venue and having that that's away from their desk. So we wouldn't, maybe not start till 9:30
yeah,
or 10, and people would spend that first hour getting there. So they wouldn't be going into the office, the team base. So we were really clear and careful in the planning and communication that because people would just be, the temptation would be to bomb and do
mm,
before the session starting at 9:30, but very explicitly asking people to go and do something, go for a walk, get outside, do something that they would between that before the session started, and the same at lunchtime.
mm,
Um, People took a full hour at lunchtime and went off and had to the kind of contracting was that they had to go out or do something, go and watch some telly or do whatever they wanted, but they weren't and everybody agreed not to log on and it was touching actually to
mm.
see the impact of that and see everybody from the service director to everybody on the team did the same thing, was able to share what they'd done.
Yeah, yeah. It's great actually, isn't it? Because when you are not physically in the work environment, people can actually connect with their own space outdoors rather
Yeah,
than
yeah,
being confined to maybe their office or slip back to their desk or try and catch up and have a mini meeting and stuff like that. And that
yeah,
contracting is really, really important. And
really
I've
important.
noticed also that what seems to work really well is having sort of 45-minute quite focused sessions and then giving people a break,
Yeah,
and that the level of productivity and engagement has been
yeah,
really important. I was going to ask you just another question. Do you think it's really important at the moment that even though people are really up against it, they've got masses of things, the vaccination program, for example, has created huge demand on people's time and resources, plus containing the current pandemic. Do you think it is important for people just to take a little bit of time out for OD?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't emphasize that enough. Really, is that at the very, I mean, it's always the way, isn't it? At the very time we need to do some of those things that will help improve our mental well-being and help us work more effectively together. If it's about a kind of team working, is often the very time when we neglect to do it because we're feeling too pressurized. And
Mm,
I think that's where having people like me doing that OD work, so it's easy for people to, all people have to do is pick up the phone,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and, and we can sort something out. Makes it a bit so it's quite accessible. Um, has been really important, and I think lots of teams have still. It's not to say there has been masses of it. I think there's still less going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would really encourage people to um, keep it up and think about ways of making it possible, even when it's really pressurized. So it might be having shorter slots, or that there are ways to make it to work out a way of it being
Yeah, there's always a way, isn't there? And I think there's a real importance in creating, just in leaders recognizing what the team may need and helping the team just to find a bit of space. And I'm currently working with a team who have just 1 hour a month. They step out of their work commitments, and we have 1 hour a month doing one OD activity and learning about something relating to how they want to move their team forward and where they see themselves in 6 to 12 months time. And I guess that's the thing that I'm thinking about now is, obviously we are living and continue to live within the context of a pandemic and various kind of constraints on what we can do on a day-to-day basis. What do you think is the future for OD in terms of our learning here?
Well, I think firstly is, as we said, that it has given us an opportunity to have more conversations about mental well-being. I think as the impact of some of the pressure I was working on people's mental well-being at work has been so clear, that the imperative to introduce ways of supporting people to develop their resilience and people's spaces is more important than ever. So it feels like it's becoming part of the sort of everyday language of the trust that I'm working in. So stuff that is, we're not having to convince anybody that doing some of those things is really critical because people are quite near the edge. So I think that's something. So really building in a bit, as you just said with that example of regular team investment. We've tended in the past to come, and to OD is seen as maybe something you do once a year, or something if that teams are really struggling, whereas actually it should be a really core part at the heart of everything we do, just to allow teams to be effective and keep learning. And so we've been working with a service recently, and one of the things that was really important for all the team was that we booked in sessions I think we're going to do it 3 monthly for the whole year. You could see that really be kind of rest assured that they have space to do that together. And I think whatever that looks like, I think we'll see more of that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a sense and a recognition that actually OD is going to be far more within the lifeblood of people's day-to-day work, rather than a one-off discrete activity or a program of work. It's quite exciting to see how it would be weaved in. I don't know about you, whenever I do an OD activity or whenever I go to a session that is focused around my own development and the development of a team, I always feel so energized afterwards. And feel that kind of almost propels me a little bit when things aren't so good, and you know that creates a real sense of well-being and a real feeling of being able to deal with the day-to-day stuff. So yes, I think you're absolutely right, and it's a really good perspective to have on the future of OD. So thanks, Hilary, for sharing some perspectives. Again, I'll just point downwards to say the link to your blog is there. And I just have a closing question about your habit that you talk about in your blog. You don't need to say what the habit is because I want people to read the blog. Are you still doing it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're intrigued, have a look at the blog and see what habit that Hilary engages in on a daily basis, and think about what you'd like to do to improve your well-being. So hopefully speak soon, Hilary. Catch up soon.
Take care, Tim. Bye.